The concept of sovereignty, central to political philosophy, has evolved significantly over millennia. As societies grew, sovereignty was perceived as an attribute of powerful leaders and mythological deities, a tool to command obedience and respect. In ancient civilizations such as Mesopotamia and Egypt, rulers were often seen as divine or semi-divine beings, embodiments of sovereignty themselves. These leaders wielded their power under the guise of divine right, which was unquestionably accepted by their subjects. As these societies grew more complex, the notion of sovereignty expanded and transformed. The rise of empires and the subsequent need for administration led to the development of more structured forms of governance where people became powerless. This evolution saw the transition of sovereignty from the hands of individual rulers to a more abstract concept vested in institutions and states. The Treaty of Westphalia in 1648 marked a significant turning point, establishing the principles of state sovereignty that dominate the international system today. However, this shift also marked the beginning of a dangerous conflation. The state, originally a creation to serve mankind, began to be seen as an entity with its own intrinsic rights and sovereignty. This conceptual shift fundamentally altered the dynamics between individuals and the institutions created to serve them. The state, now perceived as a sovereign entity, claimed supreme authority over its people. This transformation was not merely a political evolution, but also a religious and philosophical one. The priest class, historically positioned as intermediaries between the divine and the mundane, played a pivotal role in this shift. They helped shape the narrative that justified the sovereignty of institutions over individuals. By claiming divine sanction for earthly rulers, they not only consolidated power, but also implanted the seeds of a narrative that would deeply influence human governance. Sovereignty, in its most authentic form, is an inherent potential attribute of every individual human being. This concept is rooted in the natural order, where each individual is born with free and equal opportunity to claim their sovereignty. Historically, indigenous cultures around the world have recognized this individual sovereignty, living in societies where the power structures were fluid and based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical authority. The inherent sovereignty of man is foundational to the understanding of human rights. It suggests that each individual has the potential to hold the ultimate authority over their own life and decisions. This form of sovereignty is self-evident, self-justified, and does not derive its legitimacy from any external authority or institution. It is a direct expression of the human condition, reflecting our capacity for reason, moral consideration, and self-determination. However, the recognition of this innate sovereignty has been a continuous struggle against various forms of domination and control. Throughout history, various powers have attempted to suppress this personal sovereignty in favor of a more controlled and manageable populace. The narrative of the sovereign state or ruler as the supreme authority is a testament to these efforts, a narrative carefully crafted to undermine the natural sovereignty of individuals. The challenge, therefore, lies in reclaiming this suppressed sovereignty. It is about recognizing that no individual or institution inherently holds more right to sovereignty than any other. This understanding disrupts the traditional hierarchies that have long dictated the organization of societies, proposing instead a model of governance that truly reflects the sovereign potential of all individuals. State sovereignty, as we understand it today, is largely a constructed notion, a product of human ingenuity and historical circumstances. Unlike the inherent sovereignty of individuals, which is a capacity of the human condition, state sovereignty should be an agreement among individuals to form a collective for mutual benefit. This construct serves practical purposes, such as providing security, managing resources, and facilitating cooperation on a scale larger than what individual or small groups can achieve. The danger of this construct becomes apparent when the state begins to be seen as a sovereign entity in itself, rather than a servant of the people's sovereignty. This shift in perception transforms the state from a facilitator of collective will into a supreme authority. Under such a model, the state's needs and goals can come to overshadow the rights and freedoms of the individual, reversing the original intent behind the formation of states. This transformation is often justified through the narrative of national security, public order, or the common good, concepts that can be manipulated to expand state power at the expense of personal freedoms. The modern nation-state system, with its borders and bureaucracies, often imposes a rigid framework on the fluid and dynamic nature of human societies, constraining the inherent sovereignty of individuals within artificial constructs. The recognition of this constructed nature of state sovereignty is crucial for any discourse on freedom and governance. It calls into question the legitimacy of any authority that places the institution above the individuals it is supposed to serve. By understanding state sovereignty as a construct, people can begin to see it as a tool that should be wielded to enhance, not suppress, individual sovereignty. Throughout history, the manipulation of the concept of sovereignty has been a common tool for those in power to maintain and expand their control. Examples abound from all over the globe, where states have overstepped their bounds, often at the cost of individual freedoms and rights. One poignant example is the colonial era, where European powers imposed their sovereignty over vast territories, disregarding the inherent sovereignty of the indigenous populations. In more recent times, the use of surveillance technologies by governments under the guise of national security is a stark example of how state sovereignty can infringe upon personal sovereignty. These technologies, capable of intruding into the most private aspects of individuals' lives, are often deployed without sufficient oversight or consent, underlining how state powers can grow unchecked. Another example is the manipulation of legal systems to suppress dissent and maintain the status quo. Laws and regulations, ideally tools to protect and facilitate the exercise of individual sovereignty, can be twisted to serve the interests of a small elite. This can be seen in cases where laws are selectively enforced or where the judiciary is not subject to outside scrutiny, undermining the rule of law and the sovereignty of the people. These real-world examples highlight the need for vigilance and resistance against the encroachment of state sovereignty on personal freedoms. They underscore the importance of balancing the power of the state against the rights of individuals, ensuring that the state remains a servant, not a master, of its people. The need to reclaim individual sovereignty has never been more urgent. In a world increasingly dominated by large institutions and interconnected systems, the power of the individual can seem diminished, but this perception must be challenged. Reclaiming sovereignty starts with the recognition of one's inherent rights and the refusal to accept any authority that undermines them. This reclamation involves educating oneself and others about the true nature of sovereignty and the ways in which it has been manipulated by those in power. Knowledge is a powerful tool in this fight, illuminating the paths through which individuals can assert their sovereignty against overreaching states and institutions. Engaging in civic activities, participating in governance, and holding leaders accountable are practical steps in this direction. Moreover, it's crucial to support systems and structures that empower individual sovereignty rather than diminish it. This might mean participating in the creation of brand new systems of governance, supporting decentralized platforms over monopolistic giants, or favoring local governance structures that are more responsive to individual needs. Each of these choices serves as a brick in the rebuilding of a society that respects and upholds the sovereignty of each of its members. The call to action is clear. Individuals must not only recognize their sovereignty, but actively engage in reclaiming and defending it. This is not just a fight for one's rights, but a fundamental reassertion of what it means to be human in a world that often seeks to reduce individuals to mere components of larger machines. The recognition and reclamation of individual sovereignty are acts of profound resistance and empowerment, steps toward a future where freedom and dignity are not granted by institutions, but are inherent and inalienable rights of all people. Stay in touch for more educational videos and materials.